have historical books. Historical books. Historical books. Now, as the name implies, it talks about history. History of the establishment of various kingdoms, God's nations, other nations of the world. Talks about kings, the emergence of kings, the emergence of monarchy. Now, historical books, simply the establishment, the focus, establishment of the nationhood of Israel. Of the nationhood of Israel. The establishment of the nationhood of Israel, emergence of kings, rise and fall of nations, wars between nations. So it's basically history. Historical books deal basically with history. History. And that history begins with the book of Joshua. Joshua. You know, Joshua pioneered the establishment, pioneered the historical, pioneered the geographical establishment of the nation of Israel. Joshua is the pioneer of the geographical establishment of the nation of Israel. Don't forget, Israel existed as a nation, but they had no geographical location. As at the time Moses, I'm just digressing a bit, but let's learn something here. At the time Moses led the nation of Israel, don't forget, they were a mobile nation. They were a mobile nation. A traveling nation. They were a traveling nation, a mobile. They had no fixed location. At the time Moses was in charge, the nation of Israel had no fixed location. They were always on the move. God was leading them. They were moving from place to place, wilderness, desert. It was a moving nation. So it is during the emergence of Joshua as the leader of the nation of Israel that Israel became geographically established. They now had a place of their own with the conquest of the nation of Canaan. With the fall of the wall of Jericho and the conquest of that land, Israel eventually had a geographical location. And that began, pioneered by the man Joshua. Moses began the nation. He's the pioneer, founder, as so to say, of the nation of Israel under God. But at the point, they were a mobile nation. So if we're talking about the father of the pioneer of the geographical establishment of the nation of Israel, then it's Joshua. So the historical books deal with these facts. So the historical books are made up of, let's look at them. They are made up of Joshua. So we'll just list them. The historical books. Historical books. Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, Samuel 1 and 2, 1st and 2nd Kings, First and 2nd Chronicles, First and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. We'll look at all these books one by one, but we're just trying to establish. So the historical books began with Joshua, Judges, continues with Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. So these are the historical books. As I said earlier, they deal with the establishment of the nation of Israel, the rise and fall of Israel, conquest of nations, war between nations, emergence of kings, introduction of monarchy. It is during this period that Israel transits from theocracy to monarchy. It is during this period that Israel, the nation of Israel, moves away from theocracy to monarchy. Now, what's the difference between monarchy and theocracy? Theocracy is the rulership by divine ordinances. Rulership by divine authority. That's to say, in very simple terms, God chooses a leader over the nation. In other words, it's the rule of priests or judges directly appointed by God. God appoints them. God anoints and appoints the leader. So it's government by God. That's theocracy. Government by God. Now, monarchy is government by kings. By kings. Separate from the office of a priest. So at the time, during theocracy, God was governing the nation of Israel through judges and priests and prophets. As we had with Moses, appointed by God to lead the nation of Israel, it was theocracy. Joshua took over. It went on with several judges. People like Samson were there. They continued. And then Samuel. It was during the time of Prophet Samuel that the nation of Israel would say, we don't want a king anymore. We don't want a priest. We don't want God to be our government. We want to be like other nations who are being ruled by kings, by royalties. Men who appoint themselves and say they are royals. And then they ask God, give us a king. We want a president. We want to be led by a leader who is not so much connected to you, where you are not the one dictating for us. Let the leader in their discretion lead us. So it was in the days of Prophet Samuel that the nation of Israel began crying for a king. And God says, okay, it's all right, you want a king. And then that's how King Saul emerged. That's how King Saul emerged. And he became the first monarch of the nation of Israel. So it is in the historical books we find this. The transition from theocracy is one of the most significant events in the historical books, where Israel transits from governance by God to governance by kings, by human kings. It moved away from governance by priests to governance by men who are led by their own wisdom. So we see how it is in the historical books we find all of these. The fall and rise of Israel, we see that name, Ezra, Nehemiah. These are captured, restoration, they are all captured here.